Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to the Know Your Gear podcast live, episode 331. I hope you guys had all a fantastic week. Mine was, we'll talk about it. It was good. It was a good week. A lot of work this week, but not the work I'm used to having you guys think about. So we'll talk about that. We have some exciting stuff to talk about, I think. And we have some early questions that came in. We have some questions that came through our website, and we have some questions that got missed last week as well. So I want to thank the moderators for always sending that stuff and letting me know. Okay, and also let the moderators know two things. One, that I have your feed up so I can see you guys today. Last week, so you guys know, I turned off I didn't turn on the thing where I see the moderators can reach me directly, and I missed some stuff. And two, hey, if you don't know what a moderator is, they have a blue name and a blue wrench, and they're here to help us, and they help with facilitating questions and doing stuff. They do all kinds of cool stuff. So I want to thank them, and of course I want to thank the patrons and the channel members, which you can see channel members in green. If you see their name in green, they support this podcast. So there you go. I think we covered it all. So, all right. Let's get into last week's missed super chat. So Grumpy Digga said, advice please, idea of a humbucker replace a Fender HSS. You know, this is always tough, right? These big questions like that, like what pickup would you put in this guitar? What amp would you buy? And then there's no other information. So I try to come at these with a certain way instead of saying like, hey, without all that information, I can't give you a suggestion, but I can give you suggestions. I really think pickups, when it comes to pickups and guitars, like I said, I really think most players really like a PAF sounding pickup. And here's why I say that, okay? There is so much music that was written on certain guitars and certain pickups. And so to me, when you think of the history of music, rock and roll music, blues music, jazz music, you name it, there is a huge amount of music that was written on guitars that had either P90s, single coil pickups, or humbuckers. Obviously, those are three options, but there's more to it than that. And you got to understand that the PAF really started as they wanted to make a hum canceling version of a P90. They wanted the P90, but they didn't want the 60 cycle hum. So the PAF was really to try to kind of capture what the P90 was doing. There wasn't an unhappiness with the the P90 sound. It was more about the noise, the 60 cycle hum. So a lot of players, believe it or not, they really do like PAFs. It's kind of like recommending, like, what's a good first overdrive pedal? And you go, oh, a tube screamer, because it's a pedal. Not only does most everybody has one, most everybody's tried one, but significantly, it's been used in so much music, and it universally works in so many situations. And so a lot of times when people talk about Strats, I think of the PAF style pickup. And I say style because it doesn't matter who, right? Everybody's using kind of their different, it's like, for lack of a better analogy, a chili recipe, right? There's so many different kinds of chili, but everybody's recipe is just a little bit different, right? Whether you have beans and no beans, whether you have it spicy, not so spicy. Same thing with pickups. It's just an all-around good pickup. So a PAF style pickup is a good place to start as a good style of pickup to put in a Strat, especially in the humbucker, in the bridge position of a Strat. I also am really, really a big fan of the Seymour Duncan JB in the bridge. And I always love it because you're always going to get somebody going, oh, I hate that pickup. I don't know why. It's just one of those pickups. I could say PAF and most players say nothing, but JB, they're like, there's always this, and I think I think more so than somebody doesn't like it, I think more so JB is just so commonly used. And it's because it does a really cool thing. It does like this fat, throaty PAF thing, but just a little bit more push. And it works really well with single coils. So that's something I would suggest as well. And then, of course, this is back to my best advice now. That's just a suggestion for pickup. When you have your humbucker single Strat, what I would suggest you is to figure out what you don't like about it. That's kind of what people don't really focus on, especially guitar players. They're just like, I don't like it. I want to upgrade it. And I'm like, well, what about it specifically don't you like? Because that will send you down the right kind of path to finding the fix for it. Like it's too bright, it's too muddy, it's too, usually if you don't like a sound, it's because it's either too much of something you don't like or not enough of something you do like. So try to figure that out and I'll kind of hone you down the right road. I hope that kind of starts you down the right road. And again, and for those that hate like JBs and P90s and stuff, that's great too. That just means you have a different kind of, you're going after a different sound, or you have an ear that hears a different, you have different things you're trying to get out of it. So there you go. Surfbee says, I like the Seymour Duncan full shred. No one likes it. I like that pickup. But again, I don't know if no one likes it. I personally think a lot of pickups suffer bad naming. I've said this before. The Paul Reed Smith makes a pedal. Paul Reed Smith makes a pickup called the Metal or something like that, right? Metal. It's the worst name. It's the most non-metal pickup. I wouldn't put it in any of the aggressive pickup categories. The full shred, same thing. I think it was, a lot of those pickups to me are signs of the times, right? They were like, people like the shred. This one's called the full shred. People like distortion. This one's called choke you with distortion. So there was a little bit of that time, right? Same with pickups that are just have the name blues in them. I don't think it's a good idea to name any pickup with a style of music or a style of tone. I don't think it's a great marketing idea, other than for that one time. So Larry wants to know who loves lace sensors. I like lace sensors. They're a pickup I always go back to. I told you I have a love-hate relationship with lace sensors. I don't know what it is. I'm in. That's why I said I always kind of feel like I have to have a set because there's something about them I love, and then I get like I'm not in the mood for it, and that's what it is. I'm just not in the mood for it. Okay. Let's see. We have more questions. Let me grab some early questions right now. The first question I saw was from Chris this week, who says, can you explain how you would EQ a pickup with it just being copper wire and magnets? Thanks. Love for spending my Fridays here. You know, these are those questions you guys want, generally speaking, especially with pickups. Everybody wants these easy plug and play answers that just solves all things. Pickups are way more complicated than people give them credit for, and not in the way that they're put together, but in the insane amount of combinations they can be put together. And I've really worked really hard over the years to kind of find ways, and that's why you guys notice I've been doing more of these YouTube shorts and these on Instagram and stuff, and they seem to be doing really well, where I'm just tackling questions like this, and it's really tough to answer a question in 30 to 60 seconds. It's crazy. But let me give you a great way of explaining a guitar pickup and what wire and a magnet can do to a pickup. Now, this is just for illustration. It's like Doc Brown, right? This is not to scale, for illustration purposes only, but I want you to understand that it can, how something can work, okay? I want you, for the sake of, and this is going to be easy, I promise. For the sake of understanding, I want you to think of a magnet on a pickup as sugar. That's it. Just think of sugar, right? Everybody's probably had some sugar. And I want you to think of the wire as ghost peppers. Just think of a hot pepper, right? If you have one of those crazy, like I can't wait to be on hot ones, and you don't think the ghost pepper's hot enough, then you can go hotter. If you think a jalapeno is hot enough for you, then it's a jalapeno. Just think of a really spicy pepper. Now, if I was to make something and put some sugar in it, you would tell me it was sweet. But I could add some ghost peppers to it, and at some point, it being sweet won't matter because it's burning your mouth. You're like, this is spicy. I'm like, yeah, and sweet. And you're like, no, just spicy, man. And I'm like, no, there's a lot of sugar in there. And you're like, no, it's just spicy. So that's kind of how the combination. So when somebody says to me like that question, his question is, how can you EQ a pickup? How can you, with wire and magnets? Well, that's exactly how you do it. You got to think about what they're doing. They're adding and subtracting things. More wire is more resistance. It's more length for the signal to go through. So it can in turn restrict the high frequencies. So you could have a pickup that is really overwound and not producing a lot of high frequencies. If that's all it was just sugar, right? Oh, in this analogy, I'm sorry, it's pepper, right? Just the peppers. It's just spicy, okay? But if I add a magnet, especially a strong magnet, so I'll use a P90 as a great way to explain it. A P90 is not a complicated pickup. Believe it or not, I think it's the least complicated pickup to understand and make as your first pickup because its anatomy was so straightforward when it was created. If you want to make a good P90 bridge pickup, you would get yourself some plain enamel wire and you would wind it 10,000 times around a Alnico 3 magnet, okay? So this is, like I said, think we're cooking today, right? This is a cooking show now. I'm giving you cooking recipe. I'm giving you the recipe. Three spoons sugar, right? 1 spoon, whatever, pepper, right? Just whatever. This is the ingredients. You take the P90 shell and you're going to put plain enamel wire 10,000 times, wrapping it, okay? For the most part, okay? In other words, there's a little bit of variance there, but and you're going to put it in an Alnico 3 magnet, which will have a gauss of, and you're going to gauss it, in other words, make it magnetized, gauss 25. So that's essentially it. So if you think of the most iconic P90s back in the day, you think of Alnico 3 magnet, 25 gauss, 10,000 turns of plain enamel wire. Super easy. A neck pickup for a P90 essentially will be 9,000 turns of that plain enamel wire. Now, here's what's funny. That's an ingredients, okay? You could make that. Now, what's going to happen is if I was to change that Alnico 3 magnet to Alnico 5, the first thing I would want to do is not get it gauss at 25. I'd want it more like 20 because it's going to be too strong. The magnet's going to be too strong. It's going to change things too much. To me, it's going to make the pickup sound a little brighter and a little bit more aggressive, just a little bit, and more clarity. That's what's going to do. I know this is hard to visualize, and it's really hard to say in. Oh, and Fast Freddy said, what gauge wire? 42 gauge wire. I'm sorry, I should have said that, but P90, 42 gauge of plain enamel wire, 10,000 wraps on Alnico 3 magnet, gauss at 25. That is your quintessential P90 pickup that most people are going to have experienced. The reason I say it like that is it's not important you know that. That's the ingredients. That's the recipe. Now, like I said with the earlier analogy of the recipe, if I add more pepper, if I add more sugar, then it's no different than if I take away and add things with that magnet. Essentially, things will be slightly different. You could argue that this is just a little bit spicier. This is just a little bit sweeter, and I really don't even notice it. That's true, but it is a change in the recipe. And you do have to change the recipe quite a bit for people to notice a difference. And that's the problem with pickups, so you know, is that people who get into pickups really get into the subtleties of like, just a little sweeter, just a little spicier, just a little bit more. And they love that. They love the nuances of that. And some people go, I don't even taste the difference. And if you're that person, that's fine. There's no wrong answer here. It's just that's how simple and silly it can be when you're talking about those small changes. So in the grand scheme, like when somebody says, how can you really change things with just some wire and magnets? You can. It's just not huge. Like I said, if we change the wire to a smaller wire, 43 gauge, 44 gauge, if we change the magnets to ceramic, if we change the magnets to Alnico 8 for some reason, there's just things that we can change, but the differences are small and it's hard to argue that. So like I said, kind of like back to my cooking analogy, if you really get into it and you're excited about it, I think it's a fun conversation to have about how you can change something so simple and make a little change. If you're that kind of personality is like, I think it's stupid that, right, these little changes are stupid. You're not wrong either. Like I said, it's so subtle. There is, why don't they use solid copper? Scott, I really don't understand that. They do use not solid copper. There's some alchemy in some of the wire. So hold on a second. And then again, this is also really important. This is why I went down this this rabbit hole years and years ago. I've been winding pickups for about 18 years, off and on, And then for some reason, I don't know, a while back, I just got really, like a lot of you with these questions, I'm like, I got to know the answer. And what I really found getting into it was things are more dramatic than I ever thought they would, but for the most part, they are really subtle. And so both those, like I said, two things can be true at the same time. They could be really dramatic and also very subtle, depending on you. So David says, does anyone use a 41 gauge wire on a pickup? At this point, I'm sure people have tried all kinds of things. There are a lot of things that when it comes to pickups and making pickups, that you'll notice that if you don't stick with some of the main things, the main ingredients, like a 42 gauge wire for a pickup, you end up spending more time combating a problem. The pickups get a little too muted. In other words, like I said, there's just not a lot of clarity to them, or they get a little weird or a little muddy. The biggest thing you have to understand is that when it really comes to pickups, and I've talked about this before, is that the magnets are relatively inexpensive and the wire is relatively expensive in comparison. Okay. So what I will tell you is that the thing that I've noticed taking apart, hundreds and hundreds of pickups over the years, is that cheap pickups tend to have one common thing in place, which is they seem to be really low on the wire and heavy on the magnet. And that's why a lot of players don't like cheap pickups, because what it does is it's something that they don't like, sound wise. And the reason they do that is because same reason, like if again, we could go back to food analogies, same reason why you see fillers in food and things, right? There's a way to save money, and the way to save money on pickups is with the wire more so than the magnet itself. Because here's the irony, really powerful ceramic magnets are very cheap to produce. So usually when somebody picks up their $100 guitar and they don't like the sound of it, it's because there's a really powerful ceramic magnet there and a little bit of wire, and they're using a really powerful magnet because it's cheap, but also it makes up the difference of not having a lot of wire, and that's what you're noticing. The reason why this has become a silly subject on the internet to have about pickups is that, other than in the extreme cases of that, the majority of pickups now are made the same way. Look, overseas inexpensive manufacturing has learned to copy good things and just replicate that, and increase the volume, and of course decrease the labor and decrease the price of the materials and all those other things that factor in. So a lot of times there is a lot of inexpensive pickups that are actually the same exact recipe as an expensive pickup because they just copy it. Yeah, Brian says copper is expensive. It absolutely is. Okay. Okay. Hold on. Okay. So the next question, next question was from Dougal Dog. Dougal Dog wants to know, hey Phil, have you gotten around to trying those less expensive nut files on Amazon? I have. We talked about this, Dougal Dog, you asked me about this a few shows back. I feel like it's been a few months now back. And I told you my issue was I got them off Amazon and I really like them. The problem was, you guys have probably experienced this, and if somebody has a fix for this problem, please let me know. The problem is I bought some files on Amazon, inexpensive files on Amazon. I got them, they worked great, and then I went to start the concept of the video and share, and then of course share the files with you. When I clicked on my purchase history, when I click it, what's there now is not the same thing I bought. They've changed it. It's not the same looking thing. So this seems to happen a lot to me on Amazon with inexpensive stuff. I buy it, and then, I don't know, weeks later or months later when I go to rebuy it, they've inserted a different product. And the picture is different, and some of the description is slightly different, but they're saying it's the same thing and they're naming it. So that's my concern. And I went online looking to find these exact files, and it's like they don't really exist. So I think what I've sadly enough have to end up doing is ordering another set of the new version of files, and then quickly make the video so that you can have it, so that if it is something that's worth buying, you can quickly buy it. But that is that is the real frustration when it comes to this kind of cheap product and stuff. There's just, I just don't know, what to do with that. And it happens to me. So, it really happens to me. I've learned this for those of you out there that are into other things besides guitar. I've really learned this in the camera world. I'm always buying camera crap. I don't say equipment, I say crap. Part of making YouTube content is it's a never ending purchasing of SD cards and tripods and adapters. I'm always buying some stupid adapter, something that makes content, and a mount and a light. Oh my God, so many lights. Just the amount of lights you have to buy all the time. And I buy them on Amazon because, again, I'm trying to keep the cost down because I'm making content, and sometimes, you're making $30 for a video, and sometimes you make, money, but you're trying to keep your costs down. And I'm constantly, anytime I find anything I like, I had this happen recently. I bought on Amazon. It wasn't even cheap. It was, I didn't think it was. It was 150 or 170 bucks. I bought a tripod for a camera. I bought one because I wanted to make sure I liked it. I loved it. It was like, okay, it's good. It's good quality. It's not breaking. So I go to buy a second one because I want two nice tripods so I can interchange my two cameras because I want the mounts to be interchangeable. Get the new camera, new tripod, totally different tripod. Same name, same company, literally non-interchangeable tops. So I can't switch them. So I have two tripods that are not interchangeable. And the second one ended up costing me $10 more because they raised the price. So if you guys know a workaround that, I just seem to be, it's the hell of Amazon. And I try not to, and I like to point out for all of you, because there's always, anytime I mention Amazon, somebody's like, well, don't go to Amazon. Well, sadly enough, all those purchases I just told you, I've tried to go to my local stores. They don't have them. They don't have these products. SD card is about it. And even that gets a little tricky. Last time I went to Best Buy, they did not have the SD card I needed, actually. So there you go. I feel like that was, but Dougal Dog, it's coming. And there's an announcement at the end of the show today. I think will make you excited that involves those as well. Okay. Bernard wants to know, thanks, happy Friday. Thanks for doing what you do. I just hang out with you guys and read your comments and questions, man. This is, I got the easy part sometimes. It says, would switching out the locking tuners ever change the headstock weight enough to stop a significantly reduce a neck dive? So you didn't say what kind of guitar, but I'm assuming your neck dive. The reality is it's possible to do that if the scenario was this. And again, this is answering this without knowing exactly what guitar and what situation, but let me tell you what the answer should be. If the tuning keys you currently have, especially locking ones, are die-cast style, in other words, really heavy ones, and you switch to something like an open gear ultralight hip shot style tuning key, locking key, then it is possible the reduction in weight could be significant. I don't know what that actual reduction of weight would be, but it could be, it could be, like I said, pretty significant. You figure if it's 2 ounces per tuning keys, that's 12 ounces, right? It's possible an ounce per tuning key would be 6 ounces. That's almost, not quite, but close to half a pound. It's pretty significant what they can reduce. However, other than those extreme circumstances, in other words, you're using the heaviest tuning locking keys right now, and you could go to the absolute lightest, I don't think that scenario would play out in a big, significant way. So I would suggest either moving the strap button or switching straps as a better way of doing that. It's definitely more cost effective, but that's just my thought on that. And like I said, switching the strap button position is very, very important, but also a type of strap will really help that for sure. Like I said, a wider strap or a strap with more grip, right? Something that's just kind of holds onto your shoulder more so than slides. Me personally, I like straps that are really slickery. You can say slippery, but I like slickery, and so it doesn't feel like it's ever grabbing onto my shirt and pulling on my shirt. But essentially, you'd want the opposite of that. You'd want one that does feel that way. Claudia J says, Phil, always 2 trips to Home Depot, right? Nothing fits together. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I know. It's the way. So it's just how it goes. Somebody mentioned, I see in the comments, somebody mentioned about Sam Ash. If you guys watch or if you follow any of my social media, I posted that Sammy Ash passed away this week. And as you guys know, he's been on this podcast before. Super nice guy. During, just during the years, he has been someone who I have not only heavily respected, but somebody who has been super helpful to me as my channel, to me as a person in this industry. I'm not going to share it with you because it was a personal advice, okay? But I feel, like if I don't say it, I feel like I'm dishonoring him to say. He gave me the best piece of advice about this industry I ever had when I was having a significant, small crises. I was really trying to deal with all this craziness of this YouTube world and the guitar industry and stuff. And, and a lot of people, especially when my channel they saw like success. They see your channel grows or you get views and they don't realize all the things that come with that. And he was just instrumental in having great advice. And I can also say that a lot of times, when I would have these, weekly shows and you guys would ask me things about the industry and I was giving you these point blank answers that I was like very informed, it was him many times that was, I would call him and I would say, hey, look, this happened. It might come up on this Friday show. And he was always forthcoming and honest and saying, hey, yeah, look, this is what's really going on, man. Yeah. And he would just tell me point blank. He never held back. And I always did him the courtesy of never saying like, oh, Sammy Ash said this week, this is why they're doing this. But he was always had great information. And also, I'd like to also point out, this is an important thing. When I started doing YouTube, as you guys know, I owned a store, and one of my first viral videos was what guitar would I buy for $500 at Sammy Ash, and that story to me is still important to this day because I had a store, right? The Andertons guys were so huge, when I started doing YouTube, they were the biggest thing, ever, and they probably still are. I don't even, I don't pay attention enough, I guess. But they were huge, right? And they would always like, what rig would you buy? And they would go into their store. And everybody, of course, because that was so huge, when I would make content, everybody would put out like, what guitar would you buy? What guitar would you buy? They would just like do that. And I just felt like if I went in my store and be like, I'd buy this guitar, and it happens to be on sale for $4.99 and you buy it too. I was like, I just don't want it to, I just didn't want to do it in my store. So why I'm telling you that story is I went to a bunch of stores and I said, I want to do a video and I want to just buy a guitar. I want to just come in your store and I want to buy whatever guitar I can find for $500 and I want to film it. Every store I went to knew I had a store and absolutely refused to do it. They thought I had some kind of nefarious agenda. Why wasn't I doing it in my store? It was probably to insult their store. I was up to something. Maybe I had a marketing idea. They really didn't understand at the time I was doing these videos, but they had nothing to do with my store. I didn't want my YouTube videos in my store to be connected because I was just trying to have some fun on the side, making some YouTube videos and talking about gear with my friends. And so I went to Guitar Center and they said no, but not because I had a store, just because Guitar Center just says no all the time. I've said this before. Marty Schwartz and I did a bunch of videos and they told us no. And think about this. Now Marty Schwartz is on TV and he's a signature model with Epiphone and Guitar Center said no. And I contacted Sam Ash, the stores, and said, can I please come to your store and film a video called What Guitar Would I Buy for $500? Sammy Ash called me. He just called me on my cell phone. He didn't know who I was. Nobody knew who I was. I mean, I had like 30, 40,000 subs. I don't know at that time. It wasn't 100,000, that's for sure. It's like 30,000. Because remember, my channel subs, I kind of moved really quickly at the beginning. And his first thing out of his mouth wasn't not only yes, but he's like, yeah, if you want, you can come before we open the store, or we can just close the store for an hour or so and you can do the video. And I go, oh no, I don't need anything like that. It's just going to be me and my two friends with my cell phone. They have a cell phone, I have a cell phone. We're just going to film. And I go, actually, no, we don't want it to be that way. I told him, we understand that we shouldn't film people in the store, so we'll make sure we keep the cameras out of people's faces and stuff, and just kind of film it. And I filmed that video. I think that video now has, I don't know what I want to say. Hold on. I don't know why I'm curious. I'm curious because somebody probably find it faster than I do. It has 2.1 million views on that video. And the reason it has 2 million views, so you guys know, and you can choose to believe me or not, is because that video is 100% honest and it was 100% sincere. I just went into a store. I'd never been in that actual Sam Ash before. So you guys know, if you're familiar with the Phoenix area where I live, that Sam Ash store is like 50 minutes away without traffic. And I own my own store. I had no reason to go across town and visit a Sam Ash. I went in that store for the first time and I found a guitar, and it just so happened to work out great. And some people even said that they staged some of the guitars. And so, that conversation with Sammy was Thursday, and we filmed it Friday morning because I had to film early so I can get back to work. So it was the thing I remember. It's what started our friendship together. I'm sorry if I'm going on about this, but I just want to let you know, man, what a great guy he was, not because he was a great guy, but because that is so unique in this industry. And you know what? I'm going to share his advice with you. I couldn't understand why a company had a problem with me when I basically did a video that they obviously, very little of my content is sponsored in most part. They didn't sponsor it. They didn't fund it. I spotted with my own money. I did everything, and the video produced a lot of good things for them, and they were still kind of disgruntled and vocally disgruntled with me, and I didn't understand the concept. Right? I'm like, who are you to tell me anything? I don't work for you. I don't work with you. I don't know what's going on. Why do you feel the need to have an issue? And I told him, because I reached out to him because I said, I don't understand, because it'd been the third or fourth time a company had decided for some reason to contact me and tell me how much they don't like my content about them that didn't involve them and was positive content. And he said, Phil, this is a bitchy industry and they will complain about anything. He's like, it's catty. And he says, I've been in it a long time. And he said, and then this is what he said. Obviously that was the advice, but he also said, they're not going to like anything that wasn't what they thought it should be. And I was like, great. And now I've realized, and I tell you guys this all the time, now I've realized it doesn't matter when I say, hell with this company and like it, you say the same thing I say. But that video was good. You didn't say anything bad. I've learned a lot of people in this industry are just going to be upset because it's not what they thought I should say. It's not what they thought. Yeah, so that's all. And like I said, and he said it's a catty industry and they just like the bitch. So that's what I learned from him, besides many other things. So Sammy was a great guy, and Sam Ash is a great store. And like I said, we talked about him many times, and we'll miss him. So there you go. And my heart goes out, and thoughts and prayers to the family. So you guys know Sammy was young. He was 65, I believe. But he wasn't just 65. 65 is young. Again, we have this conversation with people all the time about what young is. It's relative to other people's ages. But 65 is young. But more importantly, dude, he was a healthy guy. 65, healthy guy. So you guys know he got cancer. But, he wasn't a 65 unhealthy guy. He was a 65-year-old healthy guy, which in my opinion now is like, that's like a, 50-year-old dude, maybe. You can. So there you go. All right, we're going to go on in his honor, because when he came on the show, he said, I don't want to talk about my stores. I just want to talk about guitars. Let's just do the same. Let's follow his advice. I don't want to talk about anything. I just want to talk about guitars. Let's do it. We are going to talk about guitar. Somehow. All right, here it is. The next subject question was from This Machine Kills Fascists. I think that's what it says. He says, looking to buy a 2004 birthday year guitar for my, I think it's granddaughter, because it says granddaughter. While I can afford it, she's into metal. Suggestions. I could say brands and stuff like that. What I would do especially if you can use like the Wayback Machine on the internet or things like that. I would look at 2004 NAMM and see what guitar was released that year. You know what would be cooler than just a birthday year guitar is something that came out that year, not just a year that guitar was built. So that might be something interesting. 2004 was some interesting stuff, interesting products. And whether you go with a mainstream like Fender or Gibson type product, you could do that, or an Ibanez or whatever, or you can just see if, like I said, what companies released the guitar that year, or what brand started in 2004, maybe through some internet searches. That's what I would do for fun, right? Because that could be fun. That could be a fun thing. What's cool about stuff like that, in my opinion, is that even if, like, think of this, you could get a 2004 Fender, you can get a 2004 Gibson, you get a 2004 Ibanez, and yeah, you'll have a guitar from the year, but it's a guitar that anybody can still get. It's just they can't, that year, as we know, if you go too far back, birthday year guitars, you're not going to buy 62 Strats, not really common now, but wouldn't it be cooler, in my opinion, wouldn't it be cooler if you got a guitar and it's like this year's especially if even if it failed, right? If I got a guitar and it's a birth year guitar and it was a cool guitar for that year, but then they stopped making it 3 years later, that could be really cool. So something like that, something would be interesting like that, is a suggestion. So Steven says Daisy Rock. I don't know if I'd pick Daisy Rock, but I understand where you're going with this. I think you might have meant it as a joke too on top of that. Somebody said a Parker Fly. Parker guitars were still in existence in 2004. So that would be a cool guitar. I mean, but that's what I would do. I would look at, you could probably, 2004. Oh, think about this. 2004 predates YouTube. I think YouTube was started in 2006. So I was going to say, you can go to YouTube and go to NAMM shows from 2000, and there's no NAMM shows. You might want to look up an old Guitar World magazine 2004 edition, like year-end edition, where they highlight all the products of the year. You could probably do that. There's probably a way to do the PDF online, or go physically get the magazine and then look at the products that came out that year. Like if that helps. Okay, we have Witchell says, hey, are there drawbacks to humbucker size P90s, and what do you recommend for a punchy good P90 pickup? So I have a video on that where I do humbucker P90 versus a humbucker. I'll link it in this video. I think I got asked that last week too, in that video. And then, I've said this a million times before. I'll say it again. The thing I like about P90s is what I told you. The way that they're made, they're even if you make that pickup cheaply, like I said, even if you underwind a P90, like I said, to make cost effective, if you underwind it and put a bigger, fatter ceramic magnet, I don't know why I say fatter, it's just going to be more powerful ceramic magnet on it, I still think you get a really cool sounding P90. There's just something about the P90. I think very rarely do I not like one. So I think you can get away with a lot with the P90. So that's my way of saying they're all good. Nikos says, hey, Phil, the scarf joint near the headstock on my Soundgear bass. Soundgear is an Ibanez brand model in the Ibanez series. And his Ibanez Soundgear bass is more visible, and I can feel the two pieces almost separating when I touch it. Okay, so we need to really clarify what you mean by separating when you touch it. If you can see them flexing apart, there's a crack in there, you definitely want to glue that. It's not going to get better, it's only going to get worse. That's the first thing. But I really would like to know, obviously it's going to, if it's really separating, because that's one thing. What I will tell you, what's common with scarf joints, with any time you glue two pieces of wood together, wood dries at different rates. There's just nothing you can do about that. And sometimes those lines where you glue two pieces of wood become more predominant. You see them, and you can definitely feel them more. And especially, you have to understand, this is why I make the videos I do. This is what the whole, nylon sock on my hand that everybody likes to make fun of, which is fine with me. The reason I did that was because I really understand guitar customers. should say guitar players, but I'm going to say customers. To me, a player is one thing, but not only because I've sold guitars, so many guitars with so many players, I've fixed so many guitars, and I've had that one-on-one interaction. And what I've learned is, and I've said this before, your tongue, your ears, your fingertips, they're very sensitive, and your eyes, right? And they feel, hear, taste, you name it, see things. And those little things can be so dramatic, okay? And a lot of times when players have their hands on things and you're touching like the guitar and you're touching the neck or touching the bridge, little things can be dramatic because you're so sensitive. These are sensitive things that literally feel and get annoyed by things. So a lot of times when you have your hand on the neck, that little teeny difference where if it was anywhere else on the guitar, you wouldn't have noticed or cared, but because your finger has to touch it, it feels like a giant speed bump almost, like, almost like a crevasse, right? Just a giant crevice. And you're literally like, my thumb's falling into that line, and it's just nothing, right? So I understand. So it's very sensitive. And this is why I ask you, because sometimes I'm treating you like I would treat you if you came to my shop and you wanted me to repair something. Sometimes people talk like, oh, Phil, it's so dramatic. And I look and I go, yeah, it's not very much, but I get it. I'd be just as annoyed with it as you. So, I need you to pay attention if it really is flexing. In other words, you can see a physical crack and it is opening if you flex on the headstock very lightly. Okay. Very lightly. And then that, you definitely need to glue and fix. If it's not moving, and it is possible that I'm right, that it's just two pieces of wood and they've dried at different rates and one is shrunk, right, more so than the other, and there's this little bump, there's a couple ways to fix that. What's nice about that neck, even if it has a finish on it, whether it has a finish on it or not, in most cases you can take some quadruple aught or triple aught steel wool and just, I always say, and painters tape up the pickups, because some people freak out and go, oh, and the fibers will get on the pickups. I'm like, well, just don't get it near the pickups. And I just smooth it out. That's all you'd have to do. And then sometimes you want to smooth the whole neck to make it uniform. The only time that's going to be tricky is if there's a heavy gloss to the neck. But in my experience, I've not seen a whole lot of sound gear bases that are gloss in the neck unless they're painted. And if it was painted, you shouldn't really be seeing that line or feeling it at all. So I'm assuming that it's an unpainted line, and that's what you probably have on there is some clear polyurethane. There'll be something on there. Very rarely are the Ibanez sound gears or those bases no finish, but it's possible. Either way, though, that's even better. But triple aught, then quadruple aught steel wool, smooth out that little bump. You won't even feel it. Happens all the time. Some of you guys got skunk stripes in your Strats. You can do the same thing to that. Some of you guys have multi-laminate necks, and you can feel a little, like I said, the two pieces, you feel a little line. You can, again, steel wool will take care of that. It's I've done it 1,000 times to 1,000 customers' guitars, and no one's ever came back and go, no, what the hell? They always go, yeah, it's great. It looks great. You just blend it out. It's really nice. Super easy. If you want to use some kind of sandpaper, or if you want to use a Scotch pad, you can use, like, there's a white Scotch pad, stuff like that, because some people have a hang up again in steel wool. I don't know. It's funny. For me, the problem is like, when you do something for as long as I did, and then you come to YouTube, and you do content, it's like no one ever said a thing to me for 15 years. No one said a single solitarily complaining thing. But then you do a video and all of a sudden there's people like, don't ever use steel wool. And I'm like, well, where did you guys all come from? Like, I literally worked in front of people all day in a store for a decade and a half and no one complained. So I'm just sharing that with you guys. There you go. I just thought I'd share the funniness with you. All right. The 59 sound. I love that sign-on. Great sign-on. Phil, what do you think about Fender charging $18.99 for the Mike McCready made in Mexico road-worn Strat? I keep staring at it, but man, that's a lot of money for a non-USA Fender. Okay, so funny enough, I believe it was it was on the show. I forgot the viewer that said it, but a viewer a long time ago said, wouldn't it be cool if Fender would make a custom shop in Mexico, right? And maybe do relics, right? Or, non-relics and relics, but do a custom shop in Mexico and get the prices down. I really believe, one, I think that was a great idea. And I would hope one day that actually happens. I would love to see a Fender custom shop Mexico and Fender custom shop US. That being said, that's exactly what I think a custom shop. If Fender custom shop was a thing and they were going to make custom shop Strats, that's what they would mark them for, right? This is a signature artist guitar. What I don't know, so is it limited edition? Is it only so somebody says Knight Rider band says they made it for 100. So only 100 guitars were made. I don't understand. What drives up the price? I'm really trying to understand the new world, because remember, these talking about prices now is almost impossible for me about anything. I mean, we could be talking about carrots and zucchini and I don't understand the pricing now, because everything's gotten so crazy expensive so fast. And guitars are no different. Basically $1,899 with tax, $2,000 for a made in Mexico guitar feels just crazy to me. But I don't feel like it was a long time ago, wasn't that little time ago either, that where a Japanese made in Japan guitar was $2,000. I was like, what? Made in Japan, $2,000, right? I mean, made in Indonesian guitars are $1,500. Strandbergs made in Indonesia are $2,400. Far past where it made in Mexico is. So, the sad thing is you have to kind of come this. I'm just giving you my insight. You have to come to some kind of decision in yourself what the made in America means to you, because the reality is the world, the youth, the industry, they're not valuing it that way. They're like, hey, we just need to make guitars and we're going to make them good and we're going to make them, the way we are. And this is going to be the price for them. And that's just what's going to be. My question would be, because I'm a Pearl Jam fan as much as most people. They're not really like in my top 10 bands or anything, but I like them fine. So it's a little different for me when I always say your guy, right? So I go, if Eddie Van Halen's your guy, if Zakk Wylde's your guy, if Eric Johnson's your guy, if Mike McCready's your guy, Tom DeLonge is your guy. You're more. It would appeal to me more because he would be like somebody I like. I really want his instrument. But I guess my question to you would be, what do you think it would cost if they made that exact guitar in the U.S.? So if they made a Mike McCready signature relic guitar made in USA, and not what you feel it should be priced at, what do you think Fender? If you're watching this show, you're interested in the industry, right? What do you guys think? Let me tell you. Let's do this. Let's do this. You guys tell me honestly. Don't BS yourselves. If there was a Mike McCready signature relic Stratocaster made in the USA by Fender to come out this month, what do you think Fender would tag that at? Based on, that's what I'm really curious to know, and that'll tell you if the made in Mexico is a good deal or not. Right? Anyone got a suggestion? I'll start it. I shouldn't, because that kind of contaminates it, right? Because I haven't really thought about it. Let me think about it. So relic Strats, and again, I don't know if you could call it custom shop, but it's going to be semi-custom. It's going to be team built, which I would say the made in Mexico would be team built. I would say a team built made in USA relic Stratocaster is usually between $3,500 to $4,500 is what I would say. See, a lot of people are saying 35. Somebody says 5, somebody says 4, somebody says 28. And again, there's no wrong answers here, right? Because it's not we don't know. We're not Fender. We don't price like them. The reality is, no matter what we come up with, Fender probably would have doubled it. But it's really about, what do you think they would do it? A lot of you guys say 25. I think if they were going to do it in the US, I would say 35. I think it's got to be, right? 35. It's probably going to be more, right? They'll probably do it at 5. But what I think at 35. So I think a lot of people are like, agree. So I guess the $1 million question would be $1,899, $2,000 is a lot, but is it a far, right? It's if 35 is what we're a guitar community. If we think 35 is what a made in USA signature relic Strat should go for, half made in Mexico is minimum, right? Not minimum, what I'm trying to say. Like, that's the most. Like, you can imagine it would be less than half. So that's half. That's basically half. They're a little bit more than half, right? Is that about right? So a lot of people saying 4,000. So I guess that's what I think. That's your core of your question. What do I think of them charging that? I think that's the number they're going to charge. Now, do I think that's right? Do I think it's fair? Do I think it's, I have no idea. I'm not a buyer. I wouldn't buy that guitar at $1,200 because, again, like I say, he's not my guy. I'm not really interested in it. I have a Relic Stratocaster somewhere behind me on this wall. Do I? Oh yeah, it's out of view. You can't see it. Oh, there it is. You can see the corner over there. I have that right there. And that was a fortune. I think I have like four, maybe three. I call them my COVID guitars that I bought during COVID because, we've already had that conversation. Sadness, stupidity, depression, all those things. It relates to, hey, they'll feel better if I get this. But that being said, I don't think I'd ever do that again. Actually, I know for a fact. I was actually having lunch today with my wife, and I told my wife I would never buy any of the guitars I bought at COVID again, ever again. I don't mean those guitars, just any of those price points again. I don't care how much guitars get expensive. I'm never going to do it again. So I just feel like it was a lot of money, and I did it at that moment, and it was a moment, and it's over. And I'm sure a lot of you right now are nodding because I think a lot of us did this. Bought a lot of stuff. It's a different time. Isn't it funny? All right, let's go on to the next subject. But thank you guys for giving feedback on that. Like I said, it was interesting to see how many came up with the same answer, and we were kind of all thinking the same. Okay, Parker. He wants to know, Phil, what did I think? He wants to know what I think. What did I think of the ToneMaster Princeton versus my 68 Princeton? Just need it for bedroom jamming. Thank you. So the ToneMaster series, I've already said, I really like this stuff. Okay, I've been very clear about this. I really like it. I think it's a really cool sounding amp. I think they do a lot of great things. There's a couple things I don't like about it. There's a couple things I do like about it. Overall, I like it. I have a ToneMaster Deluxe Reverb. I've tried all the ToneMaster series amps, and in my personal taste was I like the Deluxe Reverb. I would not. It's weird. It's a weird thing. I would pick my 68 Princeton, so my real tube Princeton. I would pick that over my ToneMaster Deluxe Reverb. But I would not pick my Deluxe Reverb, or I would not pick my Princeton over my real Deluxe Reverb, if that makes any sense. I hope this is making sense. And in your question, what do I think of those two amps? I think I would buy, for the price, so let me give you, I know you're looking at Princeton's, but let me give you my 2 cents. If I was looking at a ToneMaster Princeton, a real Princeton, like a 68 or 65 reissue tube amp, and a ToneMaster Deluxe Reverb, I might go with the ToneMaster Deluxe Reverb. So my issue, so you know, is this. I don't use my Princeton for breakup. So I don't turn, like my Deluxe Reverb, and I like it cranked, attenuated cranked up. I liked it, breaking up. I love that sound. The Princeton's a little bit different. It's not my main thing. So for breakup, I like the Princeton for clean. The thing I love about the Princeton, why I've had it and used it for so many years, and I did a video recently why I still love it, is because to me, it is the best sounding, warmest tube amp that I own. Super quiet. It's like a luxury practice amp, right? That's what I love it for. And I can play, play with a drummer with it lightly and stuff, but I don't. I use it mostly for practice. I use it mostly for just playing and just, I love it. I love how the 10-inch speaker works. I love how everything works at a lower volume. It just, to me, it's like my favorite lower volume amp. So that's what I love about it. So the ToneMaster series isn't something I'm after, because I'm not after a Princeton that I can crank and attenuate or do for different things too. And like I said, playing the ToneMaster series, I like the Super Reverb a lot. I did, and I like the Twin a lot, but I preferred the Deluxe Reverb of the 4. This is where I landed with it. no real reason. I wish I could tell you like why I think that, and if it sounds the best. I couldn't say any of those things. I just preferred it. Antique Rocker says, one, do you know of a clip-on tuner that would work on a ERT headless guitar? I used on my ERT headless guitar and all my headless guitars, I use a Snark. It clips on fine. I have a D'Addario clip-on tuner. They've all worked for some reason. I've just kind of, manipulate it for a second, clip it on there. So I did this trick many years ago, if that helps you guys. If you have a guitar like the headless guitar and you can't get a clip-on tuner to clip on it, I clip my clip-on tuners to the handle of your amplifier and tune with your amplifier. It absolutely works. It works in real time, works perfectly. You just clip the clip-on tuner right onto the handle of the amp. Even if it's a head, as long as the head's sitting on the cabinet. It works best with combos. And of course, you have to turn the volume up a little bit. It doesn't have to be loud, but it has to be enough to where the amp vibrates. But it will work. It works totally fine. I've done it a million times. So that's something I could suggest to you too as well. But like I said, my Snarks and my D'Addario clip-on tuners work fine with on that guitar. In fact, I don't know. I'm notoriously, is it notorious? I am. I just do it a lot. You probably already know. Everybody always says something about my clip-on tuners always being in my videos. They're always in the videos. I always have a clip-on tuner when I'm playing. I clip it on the headstock, and so I can tell you right now, I don't own or have not really played a guitar in any length that I couldn't do a clip-on tuner on the headstock because it would make me nuts. It's like I constantly got to touch it and check my tuning. Two, this is the second part. How can I tell if the pickups on the Telecaster I just bought are Fender Texas Specials? You might have to flip them, take them out, flip them upside down, and look at them. There's the only other cheat way you can do it is you can go online and see what the Texas Specials resistance are spec'd at. So like if it's like 7K, 7.3K resistance on the bridge or whatever it is, you can plug a guitar cable and a multimeter onto it like I do in all the videos and test them that way. The why this is important is where those tricks came from. The old trick of sticking a guitar cable into the output of jack of a guitar and then putting the alligator clips of a multimeter on the ground and the hot of the cable and checking pickups that way with all the volumes full force. That is there's a ton of reasons why people did it, but the biggest users I ever saw it were vintage guitar buyers. It was the fastest way you could check to see if the pickups in this vintage guitar were what they were supposed to be. So generally speaking, if you know that, this guitar is supposed to have some PAFs and they're like 8.9K and you throw it on there and it's reading somewhere between 8.5 and, 8.9K or something like that, you can go, oh, okay, it's probably likely the original pickups, and that just gives you an idea before you can, start. It's like a start of the investigation. You got to understand the reason why you would do that is a lot of people who buy vintage guitars and especially buy them and flip them, they don't disassemble every guitar just from the start. They got to figure out first how, is it even worth start taking this guitar apart to validate if it's worth the 10, 15, 20, 30, $50,000. So, so that's the first thing you can do is just see how close those pickups read to what the specifications on those are. And that'll give you an idea. And that, and then if you flip it and you see labels, that helps too. But Fender's notorious for not putting labels. They just put the blue and the red dots on things. But if they sound good, then it doesn't matter. Grumpy Mike Guitar. What's up, Grumpy Mike Guitar? It says fantastic news about the new space. It looks awesome. Really glad I'm a patron. So thank you for that, Grumpy Mike Guitar. What he's talking about is we have a new studio. So it was shared with the patrons today. Well, actually, it's not true. It was shared with the second highest tier and highest tier patrons today. So what is this? Well, if you've been watching the channel, if you've been close to the channel watching, you notice that I haven't been uploading the last 2 weeks as much content as normal. It's the frequency, it kind of slipped a little bit. And the reason is because of this big project. And this big project that I'm very excited about is, it was my wife's idea. So always accolades to Shauna for the great ideas. And when I say it's her idea, this is the important part. I'm not giving her like the, hey, it was her idea, and you guys go, hey, good job, Shauna. I feel it's important to say it was her idea because it was her idea to do this a long, long time ago. And I didn't love the idea. So I didn't love and embrace it, is what I should say. So what is it? Well, as you guys know, I do my videos and I do them in here. And this is my office that I turned into my YouTube studio area. And then I have a shop and I do the geeky stuff and that stuff in the shop. And you guys have heard me recently say, like, when it's 118 outside, I wish I was kidding. I have the AC running in the shop, but then I have to turn it off. And sometimes I'm filming for 30 minutes to an hour to 2 hours. And by the time, 15, 20 minutes in, the shop's already, 90 to 100 degrees. And on top of all that, I learned something that is really, really stupid to not know, but hey, I got to tell you, I don't need a shop to do YouTube content in. I need a studio that looks like a shop. So essentially my wife's idea, and I'm paraphrasing it all, it's kind of like Martha Stewart. I'm just using Martha Stewart because I have no idea who does cooking shows. So imagine when you see a cooking show with Martha Stewart, she's not in a house cooking in a kitchen. It's a replica of a kitchen. And so what we did is we built a studio replica of my shop. So the patrons saw it today. And to the world, it's going to look like I'm in a workshop with lots of tools and cool benches and all this stuff, but it's actual studio with multiple camera angles and all kinds of, and every live streaming ability. As you guys know, you guys asked me about doing live streams every once in a while from the shop, and we tried it and it was just a disaster and it didn't work. And so here's what we did. We literally built a replica of my shop. I still have my shop. What you'll notice in the new fake shop is that it doesn't have the wall of pickups and stuff. It's because I'm not changing anything. I just replicated the important part. I can do all the work that I did in my shop there, but it is conducive to making content. From now on, you guys will all see it. Doesn't matter what the patrons see, that you all see, because unboxings, all that stuff will happen there because I have a big giant bench now and all the stuff to do that. I'm very excited about this. It's really cool. I think you guys are going to love it. I absolutely love it. And then, of course, you guys may not know this, but I've been working on a lesson repair course, and it's going to be not only available to everyone as a public product, where we put it out on YouTube and all this stuff, but we are going to do something different, which is on the Patreon. If you want to decide to become a patron, member, it's the $10 higher tier patron. We do interactive. In other words, you can ask, and I do a repair video because I can do them live streaming and stuff. All this stuff will be explained to you guys in due time. It's too early to do that. So why not just make that studio your shop? You could. I mean, we could do that stuff. It might eventually be. I really like it already. But again, I just wanted to explain. I think it's because, one, I don't know why. I feel like I need to explain it, but it's just funny to me because it never occurred to me to make like a studio set. To the end user, you don't really care. You just want the content. And I always thought like, I got to do it in the actual shop. And if you guys notice, I'm always doing these angles that it's really tough to put this stuff together. This is more, like I said, this was built as, how do you get all the camera angles? How do you get the lighting right? And then we put a shop in that space. So it kind of made sense. So I'm excited about that. So Grumpy Mike, I'm glad you liked it. I had fun sharing it with you guys today. And you guys will see some soon. In fact, so pretty much the very next video you guys see on YouTube, the shop will be in there because, like I said, I can do so much from it in sections of the videos now, so much faster. And that's the other thing that benefits you guys is that it's going to speed up the content. A little bit. Don't get, I don't want to wait. I don't want to make it sound like it's going to be like, it's so easy. We're going to be performing 10 times as many videos, but it'll definitely not be as hard as it was. Barking Art says tone jar, exclamation mark, tone jar. Says, Phil, best way to keep the strings from slipping out of the bridge on a Squier CVJM. So the issue is, hold on a second. Well, your strings shouldn't be slipping out. They can pop out. Hold on a second. So my concern, I just want to share, okay, so you guys know, I want to share with you the image of what he's asking about. So he's talking about the Squier Classic Vibe Jazzmaster. I'm going to show you one in Sonic Blue. Come on, really? Okay, here it is. This is what the issue is. Let me go here. Okay, so in his scenario, he's saying that the strings are slipping out. What can happen is if this bridge is too low, there's not enough tension right here. The angle comes up here, there's not enough tension holding that string spot. I've had it where I'm playing and I can knock a string out of that saddle. What I would do is get a new bridge or new saddles, or cut deeper grooves into those saddles. And I can't see. You know, it's funny. You think oh, there it is. I was going to say, you think they give you a better shot of this. Okay. So in this case, you can see right here, the groove in this should be deep enough that the string should not be popping out. Another problem you could have is, see this piece right here, this lip right here, sometimes the string is resting on that, and that's really causing a hindrance too. So I would say there's a couple options. You can raise these saddles right here, which will create more tension and also create the string to seat better in that slot, because it's going to get it off that lip right there of the back of that bridge. And then if your action's high, then you may have to shim your neck. And that's just one scenario. And again, we're doing that on the podcast. You know, whenever I give these suggestions, you know, it's not a physical. I'm not looking at the guitar, so I can't tell you. I'm just telling you things that I've had to deal with that. But you can also see about changing out the bridge. But it sounds to me like you use the word slipping, which is not the term I want to hear. Like I said, knocking them out of the bridge saddles is possible, but they're slipping out. It's just, again, they're probably sitting too low. There's not enough tension. So you're going to have to fix it that way. I'm just reading real quick. Okay. Donald says, and you can use the AC all the time. He's talking about the new studio. Yes. Well, that's the big thing. Yes, AC, heating, you name it. Heating, cooling. It's a concierge service. You name it. Wayne says, thanks for the help with my Parker wiring project earlier this week. Oh, I'm glad it worked out. So not keeping you guys like, what? Wayne is a patron, and he sent me a message through the WhatsApp on Patreon, and the issue he had a Parker, what was it, the DM24. It's not the Parker guitar you guys are familiar with, a slightly different one. And he needed to rewire the schematic. And that particular model, Graphtech's Ghost system was in it. So I told him, because he was having trouble finding the Parker schematic, and he thought, because I'd worked on so many Parkers, I might have the schematic. Interestingly enough, in that particular Parker, he didn't need a Parker schematic. He actually needed the Graphtech Ghost schematic. So I'm glad it worked out for you. Thank you, Wayne, for the super chat on that. Michael Steven Anderson says, which of these three DiMarzio P90s do you recommend? They make 3 different models. That's what he says. Which one of the 3? DiMarzio P90. You know what? I don't know. I use the, I reviewed 2 DiMarzio P90 humbucker size P90s. One was a noiseless that I liked okay, and the other one was the standard one. I don't know what that is. It's not the P90. I've never ever played a DiMarzio P90, an actual P90. The DiMarzio, though, P90 humbucker that I have, shaped humbucker, is in the neck position of my Charvel DK24, and I really do like it. So I could recommend that. But I just know what you're asking about. So the sad thing is, and when I say I haven't played one, I mean, I'm sure through my travels, a DiMarzio P90s come across my bench or across the guitar, but I've never physically owned one, and so I couldn't give you input on that, sadly enough. You think with all my pickups and all my ways, they'd all be in there, but that hasn't anything I've actually come across yet. Randy says, I don't hate any pickups. I just prefer some over others. Oh, well, see, that's the way I try to remind myself to be. You're right. I always tell myself, don't hate things, right? Kind of like, when your mom gives advice, don't hate somebody, don't wish the negative things, stay positive. I try to like things like, it's not my taste. It's not what I prefer. It's not my interest. So good point. Brad Guitar Miller, hey, what's up, man? He says, hey, Phil, new guitar day. Got a Challenger from Texas Toast Guitars with P90s. Great fit and finish. Good number. No, I think it's good money because it's got the dollar sign. Good money. Less than £7. Made in the USA. For less than a made in Mexico. Fender small builders are a great way to support local business. You know, I'm pretty. Oh man, I don't want to curse myself. I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty sure if you guys, I've been sharing this with the patrons. I'm pretty sure my very first ever small builder, when I call small builders, it means the builders, the people that own the business build the guitars. You know, I've most of the guitars that I've owned are currently owned that are on the smaller company size are still built by, you know, a group of, you know, a builders, a group of workers, group of employees, not the actual like owner builder kind of thing. But my very first ever since on YouTube owner builder guitar is being built right now, and it's pretty far into the progress, and it will be my very first one. So I'm pretty excited about that. We'll see. I'm not telling you guys anything else because I feel like if I say anything else, then it will, you know, a couple months from now, you're like, whatever happened to that? I'm like, I don't know. I never heard from him again. So you never know. But I'm excited for you. That is awesome. Vim69 says, Grumpy My Guitar was wearing his I got drunk and I figured out fast Sweetwater can ship shirt in his last video. You know what? I didn't see his last video. I gotta see that. Like I said, this week I was in fact, my thumb is thrashed. I did the worst dumb thing you can do when you're building and doing construction. I had the drill, well, you know what I mean, with the screwdriver, and it slipped off and stabbed right into my thumb and smashed my thumb. It was just a disaster. So that's what I've been doing instead of seeing any content. I didn't see anything. Somebody said Kiesel. Kiesel question mark? Are you I guess that's, are you asking me the guitar I'm talking about is Kiesel? No. The Kiesel would be, again, a smaller company, but still a more of a, you know, mass-produced type product, and not what I'm talking about is a luthier built guitar. In other words, a person builds a guitar. So it'll be my first one. I'm excited. Hold on. Let's see. Hold on a second. Michael Stevens says, I thought Phil once said that DiMarzio made his favorite P90. It's probably, if I said anything like that, it would be that one DiMarzio P90 that I do like. Where's it at? Humbuckers. I'm going to say, where do they have it? I'm on his site. I'm trying to find it. You'd think I would remember the name. I just don't. Other, nope. Bass, Telly, Mini, nope. I don't know where they would put it. Is it under humbuckers? It's not a humbucker. Oh, yeah. Vintage P90 full-size humbucker size. Here it is. This is the pickup I have. I did a video about it. It's the vintage P90 with full-size humbucker cover. And I'm sure it's set up just like a P90, just in a humbucker size. I'm not sure. But that's what's in the neck position of my Charvel DK24 that Paint Huffer did the custom paint job on. And that pickup I absolutely love. Like I said, I use it all the time. I really like it. But as a P90, I don't know if I specifically can remember a DiMarzio P90. But like I said, I like pretty much all P90s. I mean, it's just, it's. I can't say I like every one, but it's very rare when I don't like a P90 in a guitar. Okay. I want to say it's Karma and Kerosene is the name. Phil, I'm developing a music accessory product, but I don't know how to price it wholesale for stores. What is the typical markup stores put on items like mic stands and guitar stands? So you specifically, mic stands and guitar stands are high margin products for dealers. So the thing about music stores and music vendors is that certain staples like the Shure SM5758 have not really changed in price over the years. So a lot of times to make money on that, they will sell a SM57. I mean, it's not uncommon for a smaller mid-sized dealer to pay 10%, 15% less than what you're paying for a standard mic like that. Because they're going to add on the cable and this mic stand. Guitar stands are another, again, the smaller mid-sized dealers really rely, and the big chains too, they rely on a little bit more margin in those accessories because they're add-ons, right? It's like you sell a guitar and maybe the guitar, if somebody buys a $300 guitar and they get 10% off that guitar, a typical dealer would expect to see on a $300 guitar a 90% profit, and that's just on what they paid for the guitar versus what they're getting from you physical dollars. They would get a $90 profit. Then if you got 10% off, you immediately take that down to a $60 profit. So they sell you a $300 guitar essentially, and they're going to make a $60 profit because they give a discount, and that's not taking account, the employee or the air conditioning or anything else, just physically what they paid to what you're paying for the guitar. So they really, to pad up that the money, they really need to get you to buy like a guitar stand, a guitar cable, a guitar tuner. All those things will have a lot more margin. On most cases, you can see double and sometimes triple. So in other words, if you pay $10 for a tuner, you could see them trying to sell it for $20. If they paid $15 for a guitar stand, you could see them try to sell it to the customer for what did I say? $15? So it's over 30, double, right? Now, sometimes even more so. It depends on the dealer. Everybody's walked into a store where they're like, really, you guys are crazy. And that's what they're doing. They're charging 3 times what they paid for the smaller stuff. The other reason they do that too is because it's really common in a music store is if a customer asks you for a discount on an item that's hard to discount, because again, your margins are slim, you might say, yeah, I can't do that, but I can give you half off on these items. And you're selling items essentially at cost or just above cost, and kind of retaining some kind of profit that way. So in your case, your dealers are going to want at least a double margin, especially the big chains are going to want that for sure in volume. But my guess is, because you said you just started this company, starting out, you're going to be starting out with the smaller dealers as well. One thing I will tell you is that it is the future now, and unless your product needs to, I don't know how to give advice anymore on how companies starting out should interact with dealers. Dealers are very expensive. It's a very expensive proposition, comparatively speaking. It's kind of like, to me, dealers, and I mean this, like I said, because I love dealers, and I told you there's a place for them for sure. But in the new world, especially with new products, where it's not used gear, I think dealers really the big thing for dealers is staying in the used gear market. I think there's a lot to be had there. A lot of us are really irritated with Reverb and eBay and crazy sellers and crazy everything, and so I think going in a store and buying a used piece of gear still has value to a lot of us. No matter how much crap you're buying online, I think if you walk in a music store and you find a used piece of gear and you can pick it up and play it and buy it, I think it has value, and I think that's going to have value for a long time. But when it comes to like if you're selling guitar stands and music stands, one thing I would think about is maybe if you could sell direct to consumers. The cost to sell direct consumers is astronomically cheaper than selling to dealers. Because one, you can be more competitive with your pricing, but also you don't have to just cut out the dealer margin. You can keep a chunk of that and use that for advertising on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube and stuff like that. And remember, the advertising can be $0 if you want to create your own content and really kind of get your name out there and make a community of buyers. And that's a good way to start your company, because like I said, this is going to be tough. I mean, if you go to NAMM and buy a booth, it's going to be crazy money. If you drive to your local stores and then try to drive across the country and go store to store, I've told this story before, I'll tell you again. I've found almost no exception to this rule when it comes to dealers. Small, and when I say small, mid-sized dealers, and small, mid-sized dealers, is up to at least $1 million in sales a year. Right? You're still pretty small in the grand scheme of things if you're selling $1 million worth of product a year. That doesn't mean if you're selling a lot less than that, you're a nano nothing company. No, it's just, even if you're selling $1 million worth of product a year or more, you're still considered a small business in the guitar industry. So that being said, when you're a small business, like all small businesses, you spend a lot of time putting out fires. You got to deal with everything that's happening to you day to day. So if somebody comes in your store, they got a revolutionary new guitar stand. It's the most amazing thing since anything. You get this store to buy 20 of them, 30 of them, give it a shot. They sell them out in a week. Your brain says they're going to call you that next week and order 20 more. The reality is you're going to come back finally 6 months later thinking that you're going to walk into a store with a stack of your unsold merchandise and an owner going, yeah, it was the worst purchase ever. But instead you're going to walk in going, hey, you remember me? I had my stands. And you're like, yeah, we sold them like in a day. And you're going to be like, why didn't you call me? And like, I don't know. It was like, what, a week ago? And you're here and you're like, no, it was 6 months ago. So you understand you're going to constantly be coming back and getting, just because sell-through doesn't automatically mean more purchase. And again, I'm not trying to talk you out of things. You asked for it. You asked for this. So you asked for the feedback. Bigger dealers like the Sweetwater guys and stuff, you're not even going to get in fact, I almost slipped up and said the name of the people the buyers, because okay. But you're not going to get them to even, you're not even going to get on, you're not going to get them. If you get one of those guys to get on the phone or get an email correspondence with you, that will be super lucky of you to get on that, to get their time, but it will not involve in a purchase. They don't care how interesting your product is. The first thing they're going to do is look how many times it's searched on their website. That's what's a big deal for them. And if the search is none, that's even worse. They're going to look to see who's also carrying your product. One thought is most people are going to be like, if you try to approach the bigger dealers, especially ones like Sweetwater that try to buy, you might think like, oh, I'm not carrying anywhere else. You'll be exclusive. That they don't care. They don't want that. They want to see that you have other dealers. Those dealers are buying and flipping and selling and making money. And then they're going to go, okay, that's something. Like I said, they're not trying to sell your product. They're trying to get your product's customers to come to them. They're very smart. At some point, they figure out like, look, they got all their customers. They want your customers too. they want you to bring traffic and product, our customers to them, and they'll carry your product because of that. But so I would say maybe think about that first, offer a deal. There's communities like this. Look, you're here live. You see this is going on. There's a lot of people here, and then that will get some word of mouth. Get exciting. I would also tell new companies like you, and I'm really glad you did the super chat. I get a lot of these emails and calls privately sent to me, and I take up time a lot of times to give you guys, give them feedback, and then a lot of times I never get a response back, and I tell myself I should never do this. But I like that you did this publicly, because I'm going to tell you another thing that's really cool is that another thing to pay attention is don't just focus on YouTubers with 100,000, whatever the hell you perceive me to be. Seriously, there's a lot of value in mid-size, small YouTube channels. These channels, to you might see 100 views, you might see 1,000 views and think that's nothing, but it's really about ROI. It's like if you can send a guitar stand, a mic stand to an influencer channel that literally can help you sell 10 products that return investments really, really good. Okay. It's like the Moneyball game, right? Now you just get 10 more channels to do that. The other thing to pay attention to is this live show. You're hanging out at this live show. Go hang out on all the live shows. But here's what you got to do. Try to figure out, I'm giving away too much, but try to figure out who the community leaders in these chats are. There are people in these chats that I can tell you that, regardless of how much they watch me, I know their names. I'm not going to do it right now, but I'm going to tell you that there are people in the chats of these channels like mine that literally they are interacting, they're speaking up, they're talking. Other people in these chats are actually paying attention to what they're doing and saying. And believe it or not, you can message them directly. You can click on them, go right to their thing and say, hey, I have a product. I'd like to send you one. And they're going to be like, I don't make content. Why would you want to send me in a product? Because like I told you, before you give all your money to the NAMM show and all your money to the dealers for margin and all your monies to advertising, maybe get somebody in one of these chats. You can try to sell your product directly in the chats to these viewers, but you have to understand you're just going to be the guy selling your crap on a chat. It's not going to have any value. But what's it worth for a moderator? What's it worth for someone who's in these chats every week to just all of a sudden say, hey, Phil, I got one of those new blah, blah, blah stands and it's really awesome. Have you checked it out? And I'm grabbing onto it because it's organic. Maybe they're championing your brand because, hey, yeah, you may have given them a free stand, but I have this statement when it comes to people and selling, like, oh, you only said it's good because it's free. Well, if it's a piece of crap, what do I care if it's free? Right? It only has value. There's only the only valuable products to anyone, including you guys right now. If somebody sent you a free guitar stand, I'm sure like there's 1,000 of you hanging out, but I'm sure a big percentage are like, I would take a free stand. But the truth is, if this guy asking the question, if he sent half the audience right now, 500 people, a free stand that was the worst stand you ever had, no, I'd say maybe if he's lucky, 5 of you would go, it was a really great stand. But the rest of you would be like, that thing was junk. And not because you're being honest because you didn't get paid. It's because the value of your statement, it has to be a trade. There has to be commerce here. It has to be, he gave you a quality thing and now you want to say something nice about it. You're not going to say something nice just because somebody gave you something horrible. Right? So that's my suggestions. And the reason I say that is because I think everyone gets hyper focused on, oh, if I could just get Rhett Shaw, I'm just picking on Rhett. If I could just get Rick Beato to tell his fan base that my guitar stand's great. I'm not picking on you. I'm just illustrating. Or this mic stand's amazing. Yeah, but there is a faster, cheaper, better way to do that. And it can be done as simple as this, right? And like I said, and so it's just my 2 cents. I see it constantly with companies. I've helped a lot of companies do exactly what you're doing, jump start up. And I this is the same advice I give them. I tell them, like, you don't have to throw a ton of money at something. You just sweat equity it out and you get a community going, get somebody invested in your product, get somebody excited about it. So, Susan says, whatever happened to free snarks? What's funny is I was supposed to start giving away it again today. I did not. So it's funny you paid that. It'll start up again next week. So the funny thing is I have not only free snarks, but I have some people that are great, and they just send stuff to the channel to us do giveaways. The thing about this that's tough is that like Snark gave us 100 Snarks. So we've been giving them away pretty good. But they're $30 Snarks, which is awesome. So we've already had a case now where a couple times the shipping of the Snark to somebody was more than the shipping didn't make sense. So Shauna actually just bought the Snark on Amazon and had it shipped straight to the person. It was cheaper to buy a Snark with free shipping from Amazon than it was to ship the Snark we had. So we have to piecemeal it out. Susan, what I'm basically saying is we piecemeal it out, right? Otherwise, because I pay attention to this. This is the one thing that Shauna gives me. I'll tell you. So the average Snark's been costing $15, just to give you an idea, okay, to ship. That's the average. Some are higher, some are lower. So that's $1,500 out of my pocket that I'm paying to ship you guys Snarks. I'm not complaining. Because you get super chats here. I get YouTube videos. I have companies that sponsor all kinds of things. But you understand, I still have to I have to kind of pace myself. So I pace it over time. So it does. So it's like it makes sense. So if I look at this channel, we spend out like $100, $200 a month to kind of parcel this stuff out. We are now more focused with companies like, hey, could not only could you give this stuff away, but could you kind of throw some money at the shipping too. So we actually, again, probably premature, but another company reached out and asked me if we could give away something really cool. Like, I don't want to tell you, but it's something really cool, like something worth almost $100 each. And they were like, we'll give you 40 or 50 of them to give away. And I said, that would literally cost me like $2,000 in shipping. So I'm like, I almost kind of feel like, I'm like, okay. And guess what they said? We'll ship them. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, we'll literally not only they're not pay to ship them. That would be awesome. They're going to ship them. So that will be starting next in a couple weeks too. You'll see those giveaways. But Susan, I'm glad you brought it up because I don't know if you know this, but my wife watches the podcast. She does now because she helps me with so much stuff now. And so I'm sure Shauna was taking notes like, okay, we got to get some Snarks back up and queued up again. Oh, Vince, thanks, man. You don't have to give me Snark shipping fund. Like, I appreciate that, though. Like I said, and I can tell you that money does go towards the shipping of that stuff. But like I said, there is no woe is me here. I'm just explaining why. Like, think of it like a small business. I have the money to do things. I don't have like that P. Diddy like money like We can't just like, I can't just throw it out like in huge rolls, but we got more than enough to get these snarks out. And like I said, and then we'll keep it fun. So next week, I promise, I'm saying it twice because I know Sean can hear. I promise next week we're giving away snarks. Okay, Steve says, any experience with Fender Starcaster modern player? It's my number one. Thanks for checking out my channel, mate. Love your stuff too, legend. Oh yeah, you know what's funny is Steve, thank you. So Steve Cassidy Guitar, I have been following more channels lately. This is something I wanted to share some stuff with you. I know we try to stay guitar centric, but I wanted to tell you guys a little secret about, again, those of you, real quick, those of you who are interested in growing your YouTube channels and Instagram, your TikToks, whatever the hell, your Facebooks, you name it. And I'm going to give you a great piece of advice. I've been following more and more of you lately. And so if you guys have noticed all of a sudden Phil McKnight's following you, that is me. Because please don't message me if it's me. It's me. Especially if I'm not asking you anything. I'm just following your channel. I have been following more and more channels lately because I'm trying to share more on this podcast, more channels with people, and not just like, oh, I also like this other big channel. Like I'm trying to find channels that are interesting to share and talk about. But here's something I want to give you some advice, and it's funny because I'm not even following my own advice because my channel doesn't have that. But I'm going to give you the advice. If you're a guitar channel, make sure you're holding a guitar in your avatar, in your picture, your avatar. I had never thought about it before until I was starting to follow so many channels, but including myself, I'm not holding a guitar on this one. I am on the other ones, on the other platforms. Make sure if you are a guitar channel of any kind, that in your picture, your avatar, you're holding a guitar. The reason is because it really draws when I'm looking for exciting channels to watch, it really draws me over. If I see a guitar, I'm like, oh, it's a guitar channel. Let's see it. Let's learn more about them. So just on a side note. Okay. John says, hey, Phil, did we answer the other question? Hold on. John, I didn't lose your question. Oh, any experience with the Fender Starcaster modern player? I've probably had one in my hands once. It's like everything kind of comes across over the years. But I know the Starcaster. I can tell you the very first time I ever saw somebody with a Starcaster, somebody said the same thing you did. They said, hey, you ever played a Starcaster? They're pretty cool. And I go, oh, those junky things at Costco? And they're like, that. And that's when I learned that the Starcaster was an actual real cool guitar before Fender Squier started putting Starcaster on things in the Costco. But yeah, I've played one or two in the past, and I remember thinking cool things about it. And I know that people are really into them, and I know that they really annoyed that Fender threw the Starcaster name on the crappy Costco stuff. Although I don't think they do that anymore, but they did it for a few years. John says, hey, Phil, would like to know whatever happened with your inquiry into visiting Zager guitars and getting a lowdown on their guitars. Nothing ever happened. They copyright striked my video. I think I told you guys this. The Zager, we did a podcast. So you guys know, I did a podcast. This is a couple years back. Somebody asked me about Zager guitars, and I said I was really confused about where they're made, right? I think that confusion is not as confusing. I think they've been a little bit more clear that they're import guitars and that they're kind of set up here in the United States. But even so, even that's my understanding that they are import instruments set up in the U.S. I've had I've had a ton of people reach out to me and go, Phil, they're made in USA, and I have one, and they're made in USA. And I'm like, okay, so yours is made in the USA? Because I'm very confused by this. And so basically in that podcast, I mentioned that I would be more than willing to pay to fly out to their facility, hang out, do stuff. So I have no problem. Again, if this ever gets to them, I have no problem signing. I've done it millions of times. I haven't done it millions of times. I've done it many times. I've signed an NDA. I've signed NDAs with companies. Basically, it's a non-disclosure. It says I can't put out any footage of your facility that you don't approve. So I mean, that's about as easy as it gets, man. I'll go there. I will do all the work. I will pay for all my time and money. I will film and then I will put together a video and I will send it to you. And then if you basically, because companies do it to me all the time when I've done these videos, like, hey, I don't want that part in there. I don't want that part in there. I want that taken out. I take it out. For those of you guys that think that's kind of not the best way to do it, let me just tell you, I've learned that's the best way to do it, because what happens is they'll guard you while you're there and they won't let you see it in the first place. So I've just learned, just let them make the video and let them see the after idea. Right. And in my experience, I can't recall any time where somebody didn't ask me to remove something that wasn't technically just a proprietary thing, had nothing to do with, don't let the audience really see this. It had literally to do like, yeah, I get it. You don't want your competitors to see your secret winding thing or your secret this or whatever, or that part, is weird. But no, I've never heard from them. Like I said, I'm like you guys. Look, I don't have any ill will towards companies. I just don't like the confusion. If we can sort it out, right? I've said this before. Zager guitars. If you don't know what Zager guitars is, they, in my opinion, created the greatest saying ever, which is easy play system. I think the term easy play is to me a marketing way of saying it's set up properly. They probably have a different opinion about that. That's fine. I would love to go there and learn. Maybe I'm wrong. Me, though, I'm giving them the credit of saying easy play is an ingenious idea. I would love to tell people, like, oh, did you set up the guitar? No, I made it easy play. Like, that's a great idea. But I would love to check them out and learn about them. And even if it is, like I said, they're made in overseas and they're just set up here, I'll learn about that process. Like I said, there you go. And so thank you for asking about that stuff. I love it when you guys ask me about follow-ups and things like that. But no, I never heard from any of them. Never heard anything. Just like Dean Zelinsky, I told you guys he reached out. He wanted me to review guitar. I told him that he'd have to give some money to charity, and I never heard from him again. So there you go. What are you going to do? Like I said, I offered to do the work for free and give some money to charity, and he's not interested. That's his prerogative. And you know what? It's not a shame thing or anything. It's just, I'm just telling you guys, I'm just giving you the updates on what happened. And in his case, so, we did a Dean Zelinsky guitar, and it did really well on the channel. So there you go. He gave it the office. Again, he may not have value to have, pay, because either way, to him, it's paying money, whether he gives it to charity or gives it to me. To him, it's paying money. So it's not that I don't think he wants to give money to charity. I think he's just not interested in paying to have content. And I'm not interested in doing free content. In other words, I'll do it free for me, but I'm not interested in doing content that doesn't give value to something, whether it's to me, to you, or to charity. Somebody's got to benefit from it, in my opinion. And you guys voted that you weren't super excited about seeing another Zelinsky guitar on the channel. Andy says Zager puts out lots of ads. And those ads to me are slightly confusing, I feel like if I, you get the idea. They're just confusing. So I'd love to do it up. All right. Alan says, thoughts on the new Laney solid state amps? I did a video on those. I didn't release it today. As you guys know, look, I just got to tell you how amazing the Laney people have been. Oh, you know what? Alan, you just did two cool things. First of all, let me just tell you, when I said I was going to give away some cool things, we're going to be giving away like 40 or 50 battery-powered practice Laney amplifiers. They're like $90, $89 amplifiers. They're really cool, okay? So why is that? Well, the people at Laney reached out to me, and I expressed my how I don't want to be, they released a new product today. We'll talk about that right now. They released two new amplifiers today. They're solid state amps. There's one for $269. It's a head, and one for $399. They're very, very good. They sent them to me and some other YouTubers, as companies do. I talked to them. I explained to them that I wasn't interested in being like a part of the marketing campaign, which is, where we all bombard you one day with all these videos. As you guys know, every time I've been part of one of those campaigns, it's either one of two reasons. I didn't know because I didn't think to ask. When I say I didn't know, it's on me. I'm stupid. Sometimes I forget to ask. Sometimes you get caught up and somebody's like, "Hey, we want you to see this new product we're releasing, and we're gonna send it to you, and you can't, and release it after this date." And you're like, "Okay," and then I release it, and then 50 other channels release it, and I go, Oh, I didn't think to ask, like, is this a marketing campaign? And I don't really hate those things. I just don't find, if I don't have to be part of that, I don't want to be part of it. So, anyways, that's why mine didn't release today, because they told me I didn't have to release it on the launch day. So, I'll have video probably Monday-ish, but it's soon. I'll release it. But going over the 2 amps. And what's interesting is they said, hey, we'd like to do some giveaways with you. So we're doing that. And they actually, so you know, if Jason from Laney's watching this show or hears it later, he probably learned something that he didn't even know right now when I said I'm releasing a video. He doesn't know I'm releasing a video. So you guys know they didn't ask me to release a video. They asked me if I would use it in a video. In other words, like if I was demonstrating a guitar, would I use one of the mini amplifier or the Laney amps in a video? And I said yes. So that's what they provided the amplifiers for. I did a video like I said I would, but then I liked them so much I did another standalone video with the 2 amps. That's just the 2 amps. So there you go. So if Jason, if you're listening from Laney, yeah, I did it a whole video that you're gonna see too. So you got 2 out of it. All right. So, Dan, but that's not answering the question. The answer to the question is what I think of them. I think they're really cool. I like it. I think it's going down the road that I want to see when it comes to like the katana style stuff. This idea, they're not modeling this but the idea is, I love the idea that, you know, not everything has to be a $1,500 tube amp, right? They sounded really good. I preferred they're both 60 waters. I preferred the one with reverb. I think I just like the features on it, and $399. It was really fun. So it was really cool. Hawkhead 418 said, fill the new Jacksons. We talked about them last week. I have not seen them in person, and I don't expect to see them anytime soon unless I run into a store that has them. Let's... Hero Glop says, what are my 3 cheapest guitars personal collection, not for YouTube? So I'm guessing, like I'm trying to remember, you know. I have a Dane Electro that I paid $300 for. So I have a Dane Electro in it for $300. I'm just thinking electric guitars. I have my Dana Scoop. I'm into it for $350. Maybe it was $400, $399. My Ibanez RG7620, which is a made in Japan 7-string. That's black. You guys seen it a couple times on the wall. I think I remember paying $350 for it, but I might have paid $300 for it. So those are those 3. What else? I mean, there's a ton of guitars that I have because, I mean, inflation, you know, before there was inflation, a lot of the guitars that I have that are nicer, they were just not that much. I have a Paul Reed Smith S2 semi-hollow single cut that I paid, I think it was $5 something new for it. It was on Blowout and I bought it. So, and that one you've seen in videos, I still have that. I'm trying to think. Anything past the pandemic, it's been just nuts priced, stuff like that. But that's just a couple. I don't know if those are my 3 cheapest ones or least expensive, but there's 3. So, yeah, somebody said, wouldn't my ukuleles be the... Yeah, I mean, I have acoustics too that I have acoustics that I have owned. They're like $200. But, okay. All right. Adrian says, TGIF, thank goodness it's Friday. Phil, have you ever tried Rotosound Swing Bass 66 strings? Just tried them, best bass strings I've ever used, switching all my basses to them. I used to play Rotosound forever, and then for some reason couldn't find anybody that sold them. And then when I had obviously I had the store, and then we couldn't get access to them through a vendor and through Rotosound. We reached out, and I don't think at the time they were adding dealers. I don't remember what the deal was, but I love Rotosound stuff. I mostly will for bass. I'll still use D'Addario, and I'll use DR strings a lot for my basses, just because I like them still. But Rotosounds are some of my favorite bass strings of all time. In Cortex says, hey, Phil, do you still love your Vader bass? I love my Vader bass. Would love to see a comparison video of the Ibanez EHB 1000 30-inch headless bass. Yeah, I'd probably check that out. I if I could get my hands on one, to borrow it and stuff and do the video. But absolutely, the Vader bass is it's tough to, when you guys go, do you still love it? Well, I mean, I loved it when I got it, but remember, it was custom. I had it custom made, so of course it's pretty freaking awesome. And then basses are a much different animal for me than guitars. Like I said, I own 4 basses, and 3 of them are custom made, basically. So I mean, of course, it's a very simple thing, and so I mean, it's a very different animal to me than guitars. I don't collect basses. I just use them for my practical purposes of using them. Dave the Pious says, thinking about getting an MT15. So he's talking about the Tremonti 15-watt Paul Reed Smith amp and a 212 cab. How crazy would it be to get a Bad Cat 212 to go with it? I eventually plan to get a Black Cat head. So the Bad Cat cabinets have well, I don't know, because things could change, but it's my understanding the Bad Cat cabinets all still have the proprietary Bad Cat Vintage 30 in it, which is a Vintage 30 without the rubber coating on the side around the rim of the speaker, and it's supposed to give it more of a broken-in sound. To me, it just changes the voicing ever so slightly, and so I just want you to consider that. So, like, it's not the same as just a V30. So if you see it says Bad Cat and then Bad Cat cabinet with V30s, understand that unless they've changed something, it's their special ordered version. They come from UK. Of a V30. To me, the MT15 through a 212 V30 cab would be a fantastic sounding combination. So that's easy enough. And I don't know. I mean, as long as you like it. Bad Cat cabinets to me are good, but I don't necessarily like them over any other cabinets or any other cabinets more over them. I'm not really I don't really have a whole lot of companies where I'm like, their cabinets are the absolute best. There's just certain cabinets I like and certain cabinets I prefer. But I like the Bad Cat cabinets, but I don't currently use the Bad Cat cabinets as much as I like them. I use, I told you guys, I use a bunch of standard Friedman 112s with creambacks for a lot of my amps. I just like them. They're okay. Litvey, thank you for the super chat. Same as Dan. DBPWNZ69. All right. That's a sign on. It's got to mean something. It says, Phil, the used amp I just bought is making a loud 60 dB hum with no input gain nor volume can affect the hum. It's all screeches. Sounds to me, if it's a tube amp, you have a bad tube. I have a video basically shows you the chopstick test where you take a wooden stick and tap on the tubes to try to figure out which tube is microphonic and causing the problem. That's a quick little trick that we've all used back in the day. When I did that video, I'm not an amp guy. I did that video because it wasn't like, oh, here's an amp, like as a tech or somebody that's versed in knows what they're doing did it. I did it as every guy I know knows this trick thing, and so that's why I shared it. So that's something I would do, but it's if it's a tube amp, it's definitely a tube. Sounds like a bad tube to me. So especially if it's squealing and making screeching, I mean, it's microphonic, it's a mess. So watch that video and tell me if that helps. At 10, hey, what's up? He says, hey, Phil, on a Fender Jaguar, would a Floyd Rose cover the evidence of a stock tremolo? No, it wouldn't. I mean, no one's ever asked me to do it. So I'm just doing off of like, I can picture in my head the hole that's in the Jaguar is square. The Floyd is going to be long. See, the problem is if you did the route behind the bridge on the Floyd, no, the answer is no. It's not going to work. My concern is the placement, because that Floyd has to go in a certain spot. Sadly enough, I can't give you a for sure, but my initial guess is that it's not going to work without you doing something to modify it. So this was probably the craziest question I've ever got, because now all I can think about, I want not only to answer your question and talk about it, But I just want to know why you want to put a Floyd Rose on a Jaguar. Like, what is it that is making you think that's such a great idea? I mean, I like Floyds, I like Jaguars, so I'm like, okay, I could see but I just, no, that's where I'm lost you. I'm like, yeah, no. I'm like, I don't know. But you know what? If you get it to work, let me know. I would almost say that if I was gonna do that as a project, like let me put it this way: if you said I have a Fender Jaguar and I want to put a Floyd in it, I'm not so much worried about the neck. Okay, we can get the locking nut on the neck. That's not going to be a problem. I would almost say, hey, could we order a body from like Warmoth, like a Jaguar body, and without a bridge route in it, and then we'll figure out and I'll put it in. I would rather, if you were giving the project to me to do, I would rather start with no bridge mounted in it and just route out the Floyd Rose template for the top and the bottom of the body and start from scratch before I try to figure out that mess. So, yeah, that one's nuts. The craziest thing I've ever put a Floyd in is a Telecaster, and that was nuts. That was nuts. Okay. Vimps, again, thank you for the super chat. Curtis C. Get it, Curtis, and then the letter C. Curtis C says, Phil, do you think Sweetwater is being less than transparent, selling on Reverb as gear nuts, which seems like a different store? Sammy Ash music sells exactly as they are on Reverb. No shells. So what's funny at Sammy, no shells at Sammy. So, interesting. That's an interesting thought. I don't necessarily... I like intuitively don't go, no, they're totally up and up and up. And I don't really understand the decision. I think that's my problem, is I don't understand the decision why they did it that way. They're not the only ones I've seen. I'm pretty sure Guitar Center has, our musician's friend has one of those like stores that are not their stores selling stuff on Reverb. What I find interesting about the whole Sweetwater having gear nuts as their Reverb seller is that Sweetwater has their own used site. And that yet they're still selling on Reverb. But I'd have to know what the logic is. The funny thing is it's not something that came up, so it's not something I asked them about. What I will tell you is, from my experience with Sweetwater, is if I was going to guess, and that's all I can do at this point is guess. If I was going to guess, if I asked the guys at Sweetwater why Gear Nuts is a different name and what is that all about, I'm sure they would be more than... have no problem telling me the answer. I've never had Sweetwater. I've never asked a question to the Sweetwater company and them not answer the question direct, with why they do what they do and what they did. So I don't know. Legality wise, I don't think there's any legal issues. I think companies can DBA is all they want. It's not like, and what's funny enough is it's not like they're trying to sidestep their warranties and stuff, because I don't think anything negates that from what I read in the Gear Nuts thing. But I guess then at the heart of your question is, I think you asked if it's shady. I don't know. And the reason I say I don't know is because there's a lot of things I think about a lot of this stuff. In other words, like, if you go on DoorDash now and you order some food, sometimes there's ghost kitchens, right? Then like Chuck E. Cheese made the news, right? Because somebody was ordering pizzas and found out that they were actually being made by Chuck E. Cheese. And like Mr. Beast, I think that's his whole thing, right? You can buy Mr. Beast food on DoorDash, but it's like ghost built by not IHOP. It's Hidden Valley Inn Restaurant. It might be IHOP. So I guess like that, and that's one. So my understanding is that's one of his ghost kitchens. So if you order food from on DoorDash and it's like the Mr. Beast food, like one of the kitchens that make it is IHOP or Hidden Valley Inn Restaurant or something like that. So I don't know. It's a tricky thing. I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, I just pointed it out a couple weeks ago because, I noticed the Nagels were being sold there as well. So I'm not sure. Like I said, my biggest problem with it is I don't understand why they even do it. I don't know what the benefit is. To me, the nefarious thing would be if Sweetwater had all kinds of policies in place, and then if you bought on Gear Nuts, you didn't get any like services or anything like that. So But I don't get that. I don't get that Gear Nuts is doing anything like sidestepping their quality or anything. Andy says KDH is on the case about Sweetwater. I think KDH, if he called them, I think they just tell him the answer. I don't think he'd have to do any research. So there are out of all the companies I've ever had to interact with, they are the most, like, when you ask them a question, they're just like, they just give you the answer and they go, that's the answer. And you go, somebody says it's probably not the same return policy. I'd have to look. I don't know. So who knows? But I like that question, and I think we should learn more about it. So, like I said, maybe I'll reach out and ask. Son of John says, hey, Phil, this may be considered a silly question, but why do most of the manufacturers only use a dot or dash on the neck and not have creative artwork like a PRS? It's an expense thing. I mean, that's basically it. You got to understand most of the history of these companies. I mean, look, before CNC machines, inlay work was another whole thing. What Paul was doing, he started in '86, and he had CNC machines probably from the start. Well, not from the very start, but from the start of the factory. But I bet you they still were using a pin router or something to do a lot of the inlay work. Now it's not a big deal. Anybody can do any kind of, crazy inlay work. But back in the day, I mean, inlay work was just, it took a skill, and it took a lot of time. So a lot of them just did that. And then the kind of the fact that it's now easier doesn't seem to matter. Players just tend to, they like what they like. And in my experience, most players like dots. It's block inlays and stuff. I mean, you'd think that's what everybody wants, but a lot of people do not want the ornate inlay work as much. And that's me, like I said, dealing with people one-on-one, selling guitars. I always thought, like, look at the inlay, and like, whatever, I like dots. I mean, so many people like dots. So that's why I think it's just because, like I said, the heritage of most companies is the expense of it was expensive. Kevin says, for the P90 fund, love my Snark Air. No batteries to replace. Bought based on your recommendation. Yeah, I'm like so happy now that I have clip-on tuners that don't take batteries. The only thing you have to do now is just remember to to charge them, which I'm getting pretty good at. Every once in a while, I grab one, it's dead, and I'm like, So it's nice to have one or two, and you always have one charged up. So, yeah, Mr. Mount says I prefer dots over birds. And yeah, see, somebody says Bluebird, NC, I prefer dots. A lot of players prefer dots. Not only because they don't like the flash and pizzazz, but a lot of players really rely on the dots to know where they are on the neck. And if you learn on a guitar with dots, all of a sudden when you don't have dots, it really throws you off to know where things are. So, okay. Let's refresh this while I drink water. And I'm double checking the moderators. And let's see. Hold on. Okay. So here's a question that the moderator pulled up. I believe it was Amanda. Let's see. Let me give credit. Yeah, it was Amanda. Thank you, Amanda. This is from last week. It's from Lunamatic. Says, as a store owner, right? I used to own a store. Okay. Don't the brands make you buy all their brands as part of your order? Yes and no. No. Yes and no. So let me run that by you, and this is how we'll end this with this how it works. Regardless of the size of your business, your store, companies, which is really important, like FMIC, Fender Musical Instrument Corporation, companies like FMIC, they have multiple brands. Just because you become a dealer with them or have an account with FMIC does not mean you get access to all the brands. It doesn't even mean you get access to all the Fender products. And that is very common in this industry to compartmentalize many things. So the way it works is the way you probably kind of predict it works. Companies that need your business give you access to everything at a very affordable or very low buy-in rate. So like a company, let's say a company, I'm trying to think of a good example. Like US Music Corp. This is a company that doesn't really exist anymore, but they were Washburn Eden at that time. Washburn Eden, Randall, and Parker guitars. They would come to you, and the buy-in may be really low. Maybe it's like $5,000, and you can literally cross it across multiple brands. You can go, give me one Parker and give me 2 Eden amps and a Washburn acoustic, and you just buy in. And as far as anyone's concerned, on their website, they would list you as a dealer for all of those brands, whether you're buying all those brands or not, and you have access to anything. So if somebody came to your store and you go, do you have a Randall amp? And like, no, but I could order it for you, because they could get it. And that would make sense because obviously those brands were, I don't want to say they weren't premium, but couldn't command much more than that. So if you think about brands like that, it makes total sense. Then you take like somebody like, perfect example is Fender, which is a very standard procedure the way Fender operates. So Fender not only would say, okay, specialties, which they call it specialty brands, which what currently would now be EVH, Gretsch, Jackson, it's Jackson Charvel, it's one and the same, and Groove Tubes, and what else are they operating? I think I said right, EVH. I'm probably missing one. EVH, Jackson Charvel, Gretsch. I'm repeating. Groove Tubes, and I thought there was one other. Maybe it's because Sun Amps is back now. Sun Amps, okay. That's what's called specialty. So that's a separate rep, separate account, separate everything, credit line, the whole 9 yards. So you could walk into a legitimate Fender dealer with all the Fender brands, and they could have access to no specialty brands whatsoever, and they're not a dealer for that. And the specialty brands would sometimes let you crisscross. Like you could buy some Gretsch and then maybe a couple of EVHs, and then if you ever have an order for a Jackson, you take it. But a lot of times they would have buy-ins. Fender, so like I said, this FMIC, Fender on itself is like, you can be a Squire dealer but not carry Fender. Okay, you can be Fender accessories. Think about that. You can carry their accessories, their t-shirts, their mugs, their mouse pads, their strings, picks, but not have access to even Squire, none of their product lines. So think about it. So Squire is a buy-in. Then accessories is a separate buy-in. Okay, and those usually they require those every year to be re-upped. In other words, you have to buy into each one of those lines. Then in the Fender lineup, just Fender, made in Mexico is its own category. So like you can buy Fender made in Mexico, but you can't buy made in USA. Then Fender made in USA. Fender acoustics is its own category. So if somebody walks in, you could carry, so think of this, you could be a Fender custom shop dealer. It's not likely this will happen, but it's possible. You could walk in a store, have Fender custom shop, because that's a separate buy-in for that SKU. They could have Fender American, they could have Fender made in Mexico, they could have Squire, and you go, I want a Fender ukulele, and they can't order it for you because they don't buy into the acoustic line, and the acoustic line ukuleles would fall under that. So they have to separate buy-in for those things, right? Now I said it's possible, not likely, because usually the way it works is that, you know, it's a top-down thing. Once you're buying in the top, you're buying across all the way down. But each one, so not only are those each, do you need those codes to buy from those categories, but like I said, they can require that yearly for you. And companies do that all the time. They have yearly re-ups, all that stuff. Yeah, it can get a little convoluted and crazy. And this is, like I said, at the smaller level. It gets a little more crazier at the bigger level. So to answer your question, that's the answer to your question. As a store owner, do you buy across the brand? Companies like notorious ones are Mesa Boogie, but I don't know now because Mesa Boogie is owned by Gibson. But back in the day, Mesa Boogie, I can tell you why I was never a Mesa Boogie dealer. Mesa Boogie required $1,500 a buy-in of tubes. And maybe that doesn't sound like a lot of money to you guys, but it's a lot of money for tubes because I sold probably $100 worth of tubes a year. You know, people didn't come to my store looking for tubes. So if I would have tubes and somebody come in and going, I had a gig in my tube, bro, and do you have any tubes? I'm like, yeah, we got some tubes right there. And you get some tubes, but I didn't carry tubes. So when Mesa Boogie's like, yeah, I buy $1,500 of tubes, I'm like, well, I just sell $0 in tubes now. How am I going to go from $0 to $1,500 a year in tubes? And they're like, well, if they buy Mesa Boogie amps, they're going to buy the tubes. I'm like, I guess, right? It was a scary thing. So that's how it works with buy-ins with companies. And a lot of the stuff is actually probably worse now and some of it's better now. So that's how that works. So to buy into the brand, you can. And some companies, like I said, if they need you hard enough, they'll let you buy one thing and then tell people you're a dealer. So there you go. It's It's great. A funny story. We'll end on this little funny tidbit that happened. I once had a VP for Fender in my store. I was complaining that a dealer had became a Fender accessory dealer, and I was explaining that my issue is that they were only a Fender accessory dealer to tell everybody how bad Fender was. And I said, I don't understand. I said, you do a horrible job at what I just explained to you guys, right? What I just explained to you, I just explained, but most of you probably don't understand that, right? That there's all these buy-ins, all these codes, all this stuff. And so I said, so the store down the road, or not down the road, but the store, the store in town they could sell you picks and strings and t-shirts from Fender, but not Fender product. And he's like, no, I don't think you understand. It's like, we want every dealer to have access to something. And I said, yeah. I said, well, why don't you call that dealer and ask them if they carry Fender? I had no idea if this would work, by the way, but I wanted to see what happens. So he literally gets out his cell phone and he calls the store and he says, hi. And he goes, I'm looking for a Fender guitar, and you're listed on Fender's website as a Fender dealer. He was playing dumb, right? And they said, oh, we are a Fender dealer. And he goes, oh, you're a Fender dealer? And they're like, yeah. And he goes, okay, so if I want to buy a Made in Mexico or a Fender American Strat, can I come down and get one? And they go, oh, they're not very good. You should buy a Godin, because they were a Godin dealer. And and he's like, oh, really? And they're like, oh, yeah. And he goes, what's so bad about them? And they're like, oh, yeah, everybody knows they're pretty much junk, and Godin is the way to go. We're a dealer, but I just couldn't, like, something about it, I couldn't in good conscience sell you a Fender. And he gets off the phone and he's like sitting there, and I'm like, see, I told you. That's what I told him. I go, see, I told you. They only have they only sell your accessories so that they get listed on your website to tell people they're a dealer, and then they're side selling all your customers to somebody else. There you go. I don't know why that story is funny. It always made me laugh. I think it was his face, like his face when he's like, oh, Fender's horrible, huh? By the way, I don't disagree that Godin's a great guitar against the Fender. I didn't disagree with anything they said. I just thought it was funny that they were actually saying it to the VP at Fender. That was kind of funny. All right, on that note, that was funny. That was a good way to end the show. We'll end the show on that note. As always, I want to thank all of you for being the guests this week on the show. Your questions, comments, your interactions, I think is what makes this all amazing every week. Please look for the new studio and some of the new videos, and thank you guys for the support with that. And I guess now we'll just say have a great weekend, and until next week, know your gear.